So this is podcast 8 of Prologue is Amazing by me, Umar Nawaz. And I'm just going to talk. I was talking to my daughter today about apps and how amazing they are. Well, I was like, how apps, you can always think of an app, right? Like a system. Like there's always an idea, and so there's always a business opportunity, right? Because so it's like she was doing her homework and she was doing in this app called Notability. So it was chemistry homework, grade 12, and a teacher gives her PDFs, and then she goes in on Notability and writes notes on it. But the reason she's using Notability is because Microsoft pays her school system for the students to be forced to use it, right? Like there's actually better systems, and for example, Google Classroom is free, and the teacher could probably go in Google Classroom, write a bunch of questions that the students can go online and answer. But it's like Microsoft is going around paying school systems to force them to use Microsoft products and not use any other company's products. And there was, I think, a company called Blackboard or something that was like going around and forcing school systems into using their apps. And this has a history, right? So I was like, because even in that narrow example, it's like, how about there would be an app where the teacher could go into an app and enter questions and the students could answer, right? Now the next step would be, it's like, well, maybe there's already apps like that, like Google Classroom. The next step could be, how about the teacher goes in and um, there's already a database of chemistry questions, and then the teacher can be like, well, ask the students to answer them. Maybe there would be 10,000 questions already, and each time the students would get a random selection of questions, so you can't even cheat. The students cheat different questions to each other. So that would be a next step. Maybe there would be a step where, maybe particular school systems or particular regions, like province of Ontario or maybe state of California, they have different grade 12 chemistry assignments, like, syllabus. So maybe the teacher, there would be an app where it would do everything all across K-12, and then the teacher would just be like, well, this is Ontario grade 12, and so only those particular questions would be presented to the students, and on and on. And then I was like, well, maybe she was like, the schools won't pay for the app, right? Because they're being forced by Microsoft to use the Microsoft apps. So maybe it's like the Parents Association could pay for an app, or maybe individual parents could pay for the app, or maybe Parents Association could pay for that app for all their students, and then you'd have an extra system. It's like, well, you can have rankings of students, right? Like the school won't give parents rankings of how their student is doing nowadays, like they do in countries like India. But let's say if the parents were directly paying for the app through their own money, so it wouldn't be a school paid app, and then the app developer would be getting paid as well, right? But it would be from the parents, and maybe some rich parents would donate more money than the less rich parents, but still all the students from a particular class or year can use them. And then the parents can even see a ranking of how well their student is doing. So it could be a entire extra school system outside the school system, and then maybe the teachers would actually be able to look into that system and see how well the students are doing. And then, my final step is like, well, how about remove the teachers entirely? So maybe there would be an app where parents can start to donate money through the app to lobbyists to start removing teachers from the system entirely. And, because the app is doing most of the work what a teacher would have done, and giving more accurate results. And and then maybe the universities could have a look inside that app and start to select students directly from watching their statistics on the app. Maybe there's really smart students that are just blowing through all the questions and maybe get to higher and higher level questions, or harder and harder questions, and the universities can directly look at that and start selecting students directly from apps. Maybe the students can start presenting their interviews and essays inside the app, and the universities can look through there and look at the interviews. But maybe, teams of people in India can be paid to do rankings of student interviews or student essays inside the app, and so then the university can just look at the most highly ranked students right directly from that and start picking them. And like, do you get it? So there's a whole systems thing that can be done if you have apps that is better than the current school system, right? Because the current school system is predicated on one teacher, 30 students, right? And the teacher marking the 30 students. If you have these apps and all kinds of systems, and the students can be assessed by people all across the world, or even ranked by themselves, by their own peers, and all kinds of things in that manner, then you can have these kinds of like much more sophisticated ranking of students, and all around is a better system, right? That's the power of apps, or the power of apps and internet and networking, and so yeah, that's what I was talking to my daughter about. And so there's always an opportunity for apps, like because unless these systems are clearly evident, I'm not seeing them. But, you can always go around developing apps. Like it's not like this field of apps is saturated. Because I was telling my daughter, it's not saturated until there's no people working, right? Until you're seeing like, well, no one's employed right now, most people aren't employed because, or whenever you see meetings going on, whenever you see a building, an office building or something, or there's people sending each other emails to get things done, or there's spreadsheets that people are using to get things done, or there's Word documents that people are writing to get things done. Until all of that is gone away, there's an opportunity for apps, because the apps can replace spreadsheets with an app. They can replace the process of creating a document with an app. They can replace meetings with an app, and email communication with an app, text communication with an app. Like, you can systemize all these procedures. They can replace office buildings with people working through an app, because you systemize the process of how things are happening. And if you and there's always, until and I was even telling you, it's like, well, what does a lawyer do? You could probably systemize what a lawyer does by, let's say, a team of 1,000 people who are not lawyers, who just have grade 12. If you can systemize all the stuff that a lawyer does, the research and the preparation of documents and cases and stuff, and if you have a systematic system, and that will allow a whole bunch of people to do it together, like a whole bunch of untrained people, to produce a result that a trained professional would do, and maybe have it superior to what the trained person would do. You can have that. That's an app idea, right? And then, so you can start going across all the occupations, and like, this is, in a sense, is how factories worked. The assembly line was a de-skilling of the workforce. Like, there would be skilled craftsmen who would make an entire shoe by themselves and take a year or two, like the village cobbler. They were replaced by assembly lines in factories where each person that did a particular thing was unskilled compared to the craftsmen, but they could work on an assembly line, and you have a whole bunch of people, and then they're churning out shoes in minutes rather than years, right? Or so you could have like that. So that the same procedure that factories did for the production of physical goods, you could have it for production of all these uh, intellectual goods like teaching and law and engineering, and all these things could be de-scaled into apps or whatever, database backed web applications, whatever, that allow a team of people to do what one person did, but do it more efficiently, do it with less training, do it with higher consistency, higher quality. And yeah, so my daughter is planning on doing engineering at university, probably mechatronics, but maybe mechanical engineering, maybe electrical, I'm not sure. But and I was telling her, like, you don't want to discount computer science or this kind of stuff, software engineering, because this is very important, and it's like more important in a sense. Now there is a risk reward ratio as well. Like, engineering is like I'm not really sure what the job opportunities are, but I'm like, yes, you do engineering and you get a job working directly on the assembly line or working directly at NASA or whatever. And software, you might get your job and then be working on something crap, right? And maybe getting a software engineer job at NASA is harder than being a mechanical engineer, getting a mechanical engineering job at NASA. But but there is, I think much more. Well, I'm not sure. Maybe she should do it. I'm just saying. Well, for me personally, like, I can't do engineering. I can't. You need an engineering degree, or even to get your foot in the door. You can't start your own factory from home. The work of a mechatronics or mechanical engineer, you can't do it from home because it costs thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars equipment, millions of dollars, right, to start your own factory. But an app, in a sense, is a factory, and you don't need any money. It's like you could start on your laptop, right? The only thing is like lots of people can do that, right? Because the barrier to entry is so low that millions of people from across the world can attempt to do it, where the barrier to entry for like a physical startup is much larger, like creating a factory. So not millions of people, but only thousands or hundreds of thousands of people from the world can attempt to do it. So maybe the best thing is to like trying to do engineering and then try to get in there, because the barrier to entry is higher. But like the richest people in the world are not factory owners. Well, Elon Musk is, but a lot of them are like software people. And I mean, even Elon Musk started off with software. His first few companies were software companies, and even now he considers. And a lot of the biggest manufacturing companies mostly employ software engineers. Like I think Tesla, SpaceX, they have more software engineers than like mechanical or electrical engineers. Boeing, I think 90% of the engineering workforce is software engineers. So that's the thing. And but still, I'm amazed by the possibilities of apps. And I think you don't even have to do a lot of selling or advertising if you put it on the App Store. And well, maybe, yeah, maybe you could do more advertising, but it's almost like you could make an app and put it in the App Store and it might take off, right? Just organically, just by people using it and telling others, maybe. But so yeah, there's lots of yeah.